All right, guys, so today in front of me from Four Gate Whiskey Company, we have their batch number 24. This is their Bourbon Down Under. So this is a high rye Indiana straight bourbon whiskey that is aged for 6.5 years. It's finished in Australian Apera sherry casks. Comes in at 116.6 proof. Mash bill on this one is 60% corn, 34% rye, and 4% malted barley. One of the things I love about Four Gate is basically every release that they have is finished in something, whether it's a wine finish or a rum finish or multiple finishings. It really kind of sets them apart from everybody else. And again, they do spectacular things with their blending and their finishings. You know, I'm definitely excited to get into this one, guys. So without further ado, let's go. So as I stated, this one is 6.5 years old and comes in at 116.6 proof. Let's go ahead and get into the nose. So very first thing, just a lot of ripe berries, blueberries, blackberries. Get a hint of like a purple grape there further into the glass. Not a lot of baking spices on this one. Maybe just like a hint of some cinnamon there further into the glass with some of those, some of that purple grape. Some of those darker notes. Yeah, I pick up a lot of raisin and a lot of grape, purple grape on this one. A lot of raisin, a lot of grape. Again, signifying there is some of that sherry influence in there. It is very sweet on the nose. Again, I'm not picking up a lot of baking spices on this one. But there's still a really nice vanilla, a really nice caramel on this one. I do pick up like a little bit of maybe some black pepper there on the nose as well, further away from the glass. Yeah, so the sweetness that I'm getting, I feel, is further away from the glass. Again, some of those vanillas, those caramels. Again, some of that, like a little bit of black pepper further away. But then further in, you're starting to pick up some of that raisin, some of that purple grape. I do pick up, like, further into the glass is a slight hint of like some sweet oak there as well. Yeah, this is it's a beautiful nose, guys. Get into the palate. Cheers. Yeah. Wow. So this one, so for that first sip, the palate reminds me of the nose. Again, those purple grapes, those raisins. But what's different about the nose on this one is some of those high rye spices. And there's more, a little more baking spice there on the palate than there was on the nose. So, that initial burst, again, some sweetness there up front, some vanilla, some caramel, a lot of rye spices going on this one. But then there's, on the backside of this one is really kind of where those, that purple grape and that raisin really start to appear. It's like a caramel drizzled, caramel drizzle on like a raisin. On the palate there, and then into the finish, you do start to pick up some of those peppery notes again that I was getting on the nose. Some of that black pepper, some of that high rye, those rye spices there going down as well. It's a really good first sip. Like at first, it kind of dried out the mouth a little bit after swishing it around, but then it just it really starts to saturate itself on the sides of the cheeks and into the gums on the tongue, and then it starts to water your mouth back up. It was an amazing first sip. Really nice. Let's get into the second one. Yeah, so again, very consistent with that first sip. A lot of that purple grape, a lot of raisin, caramel drizzled raisins there on the back of the palate. Those rye spices still kind of dominating the center, but the front of the palate, I went from, having some of those vanillas and those caramels, slight little hint of like a blackberry there on the front of the palate, almost like a little bit of that tardiness on the front, mixed with some of that sweetness. And then again, those rye spices that really develop there on the center of the palate. And then into the finish is again where that purple grape and those caramel drizzled raisins with like a sprinkle of some black pepper, really start to develop and form there on the back and into the finish. It's a medium to long finish. It really kind of lingers, it lingers on some of those spices. And again, that second sip, it almost like dries your mouth out there for a minute, but then again, that saturation, it sits in your cheeks and your tongue and your gums, and it really starts to get that your mouth watery again, and those flavors just kind of mingle around in there while it's doing it. That's it, man. Again, this is, the way that they finish things over there at Foregate is just, it's mind blowing. It's so good. Last sip, guys. Cheers. So that last sip changed a little bit. Still, again, some of that consistency with some of those flavors. Again, some of that sweetness there up front, the vanilla and the caramel, that tartness from like a blackberry, into the center of the palate where those rye spices were really developing. That's kind of tamed down a little bit, and I get like a burnt orange. There's some burnt orange like citrus there on the sides of the palate, and then into the back. Again, it's like it's you still get that that caramel drizzled raisin, some of those purple grapes, but then there's almost like this hint of like a black cherry that starts to develop there onto the back with some of that black pepper. Like that last sip almost reminded me of like an old fashioned. It almost, that last sip tasted like an old fashioned with like a Luxardo cherry, or maybe even a darker cherry. And then some of that like that burnt orange on there. That last sip was definitely my favorite, because not only did I get, all those same notes. Again, the rye spices were a little tamed down on that last sip. You still get them. But then like these other flavors started to develop, that burnt orange there on the sides of the palate, and then that black cherry there into the finish with that purple grape and that caramel drizzled raisin, some of that black pepper. That last sip was literally like drinking a high quality old fashioned. That last sip was delicious, absolutely delicious. Amazing job here again with their finishings, guys, from Foregate Whiskey Company. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. I want to send a big thank you over to Bill and Bob over at Foregate Whiskey Company for supplying me with the sample to review on the channel. Again, another outstanding whiskey here from Foregate Whiskey Company. I mean, honestly, they get a ton of credit for what they do. Just amazing use of those different barrels and those different finishings that they have for each one of these releases. Some of them I've never even heard of before, but just amazing. This, like for instance, like this one, the Australian Paris Sherry Cask. Never heard of it before, but what an amazing experience. And that's kind of what I kind of how I reflect on this one. This was a very unique experience as far as whiskey tasting for me, because it's something really that I don't get a lot of on a whiskey, and I love sherry finishings, and this one was very, very unique. Not all times though I get purple grape on a palate. I really enjoyed that, and then again it maintained its consistency, but yet it still started to develop some of these flavors on that last sip. Like that last sip was that old fashioned. It literally tastes like an old fashioned on that last sip, and I absolutely love that. I do need to try to find a bottle of this batch number 24. This in my opinion is a pretty special whiskey right here. As far as a grade on this one, this is definitely a bunker-worthy bottle if I could find one. I'd give this like an 8.4 as far as a whiskey score. This is 8.4. This is definitely a bunker bottle. I do want to spend some more time with it. And again, a lot of these whiskey scores can change. As the whiskeys open up, they may become worse, but they also may become better. Again, I think a solid 8.4 on this one. Just an amazing job by Bill and Bob over at Foregate Whiskey Company, guys. So if you're looking for more reviews like this, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. And until next time, guys, stay dusty.